My hope is that sooner than later, we'll be hosting these types of panels back in person again, or at least a hybrid version. And that way we'll all be getting to see each other's beautiful faces for sure. Well, with that, looks like we got a good crew jumping on, and as they continue to do, I don't think they'll miss much in what I say in our opening, but rather we'll look forward to our team ready to share. So good morning, KW Milwaukee. Thank you so much for carving out the time to invest not only in your personal, but also in your professional development. Overall goal today as family reunion was an eye-opener for me. Goal is to grow together as we learn from a handful of our KW colleagues who attended family reunion in person. So we're excited to hear about their greatest takeaways and how they, and hopefully how you also might plan to take some action and implement some of the best practices into your business today. As you may have heard Charlie say before, something that keeps sticking with me, we don't want to learn for learning's sake, but rather learn for earning's sake, which means at the end of the day, we need to take action. So my challenge to you is to grab a pen, take a few notes, and by the end of this conversation, please post in the chat or email me the one thing that you plan to take immediate action on. So for those who may be newer to our family or who may have never experienced family reunion before, I thought I'd quick highlight what family reunion is, and then you'll hear from our panelists today, their experience as well. But family reunion is the world's largest real estate convention, 5 days action-packed, basically sun up to sundown. Really offering diversity of thought and messages from some of the most influential minds in real estate, along with an abundance of networking opportunities, masterminding, and sharing of best practices. To put it in perspective, there were over 19,000. I thought it was closer to 10, but on the back end, we got the report, there were over 19,000 attendees on site in Orlando and many more around the world learning via Zoom. Just a little scope and scale. When I grew up in the booming metropolis of Tomah, Wisconsin, there's a population of 8,000. Okay, for those of you who don't know Tomah, it's where the I divide. 90 goes west, I-94 goes north. What this means is that there were 2.5 Tomahs worth of KW associates in one convention center growing together. Okay, definitely felt great to be back in person as well. And the last thing I'd say about that is what that meant is the Ubers were scarce and at a premium, so much that Willie had the opportunity to coach me into transporting back to the hotel via electric scooter for the first time in my life. So good growth opportunity. And if you learn nothing else today, one of the most valuable lessons that I learned at family reunion was to never attempt to ride a scooter with one hand. Okay. Hopefully you learned something today. So without further ado, a big shout of gratitude to our panelists for making the time to invest in you and help each other grow. So a quick intro of who's joining us today and who took in family reunion in person. We have Emily Phair, Kim and Peter Gohsman, Kevin Hinton, Willie Stalle, and Aletha Champine, who are going to shed some knowledge and share some nuggets with you that hopefully you can take action on. So with that, let's dive in a little bit. And first and foremost, for those that have not experienced family reunion in person, it definitely is a different experience via Zoom. So in person, Peter, tell me, what was your overall first impression of family reunion?
Well, my first impression, it was so nice to be among my people, right? 20,000 Keller Williams agents in person. It was so electric and so invigorating and so maskless that it was really refreshing. It was good to be back almost close to normal and just to share with fellow agents from across the country, the things that we've been doing, the things that we'd been experiencing and what we were looking forward to. And it was important for me because I'm known in some circles as the Kool-Aid man. It was important for me that Kim, as a newly licensed agent and admin, was able to experience the things that I've been experiencing and that have been so valuable to me for the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, for sure. That is definitely great to share the experience, as I realize my wife cannot quite relate to the stories that I'm telling, nor the comprehension of 19,000 agents together. So Emily, anything you would add to your first impression?
There were a lot of, like, those realtor pins, lots of those walking around. That was nice. I haven't seen those in many, many years. No, it was awesome to be in person again, because we did family reunion via Zoom last year, or whatever version of it was last year, which I would say was mediocre. And then we did Mega in Milwaukee this past August, which was really, really good, but it's just not the same as being in person. So being back together again was just super. There was just, we ran into people from across the country. We had random conversations with people that inspired us and gave us little nuggets. So it's just like being in person is just, it's a wild experience. It was awesome. I loved every second of it. I was there for 48 hours and it was perfect 48 hours.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, I wasn't around for Zoom family reunion last year, but all the feedback that I heard is that it definitely is not the same experience, right? So being able to witness it firsthand, you get a little more depth and content that actually soaks in, rather than sitting in your office or at your desk with a subpar Zoom experience from years ago. So glad to hear that. I guess I should jump back to Kim here after Peter touched on how he wanted to pull Kim in to share that experience. Kim, what was your first impression?
Well, it's kind of a wild ride. I mean, I was impressed to have that many people together, being so unified, all coming together to share their minds of what they've learned, and so happy and willing to teach the old and the new, their tricks and their talents. I thought everything about it was very well run. When you get that amount of people in and trying to coordinate everybody where they needed to go at what time and whatever, it's just a very well-oiled machine. And I was really, really impressed. I was also very, very motivated to learn more, to change my mindset, and to look forward to meeting more people and learning from more people.
Yeah, for sure. You get that many minds in a room and you're definitely going to learn a different perspective that see life, see business through a lens that may not be your own. So with that, if I'm not mistaken, I think the majority, if not all of you, have attended in the past. I guess, Kevin, tell us, what is it? Why do you keep returning to family reunion, or why would you want to go back?
Yeah, it's it's great for so many reasons. I mean, obviously, some of the things you mentioned, to be in person. Every time we leave there, it's like always the same thing. It's like equal parts inspiring, equal parts humbling. If you ever have an ego, just go to family reunion. It'll go away real fast.
Totally.
Real fast, and, be proud of your little this or that. And, somebody, made $1 billion last year. So you're like, okay, so maybe I'm not so cool. So, and then it's just great for so many reasons. I mean, there's so many takeaways, that we can get into. There's 20 reasons somebody should go. Literally, the trip pays for itself, first of all. Mm-hmm. So, the connections that you make, I mean, it pays for itself tenfold. So if anybody's thinking it's not cheap, but it pays for itself 10 times over.
Yeah. No, definitely appreciate that. And you mentioned the connections. I was going down thinking, I'm going to hear from Gary Keller, I'm going to hear from a keynote, but not realizing from my perspective, over half the experience was networking with other individuals, right? Like that's a big component that you lose via Zoom, sitting at home. that it was great to meet, whether I was meeting other leadership and team leaders from around the country or agents from Costa Rica and Georgia and Texas and Montana and everywhere in between. It's great to build that referral network as well. So with that, as far as while we're talking about who we met, Aletha, I guess tell me, who would you say was the most interesting or impactful person that you met at Family Reunion?
That I met or that spoke?
Either way.
So I've been to a few, I've been to Mega Camp, Family Reunion. I'm, a lot like Peter, I'm kind of all in on the in-person KW events. One thing I did differently this time was, instead of sitting, finding an empty table when you're trying to eat, we would just sit down and say like, hey, is anyone sitting here? And ended up building quite a few referral relationships right off the bat with agents from all over the country. And it's, we've exchanged emails since on kind of how you're doing your marketing, how you're growing your teams. So I would say in different ways, everyone that I met there was influential in, because they all had something else to share. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the key purpose of going to these things in person, because when we're, like Kevin said, it'll pay for itself tenfold simply from, 2 different referral relationships, right, or 2 different ways of like, hey, this is when we send, or how we send postcards out and mailers every month. So it was really influential in that way, but, it was also just fun to meet people it was very motivating. Mm-hmm. And it's also reassuring. I think one of the most influential conversations I had was hearing from every other agent all over the world that their market is hard right now. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay, we're all in this together. So I think that was kind of the most influential piece of the people puzzle for me.
Yeah. No, thank you. And jumping back to Kevin's comment about humility, you're absolutely right. You might think that you're operating your business at a high level. We might think that we have one of the top market centers in the country, which may be true, but when you get into a room with some of the most successful associates from around the world, it is that humbling moment where it's the aha. One of the quotes I think I heard on Friday in the top 50 market center mastermind with Gary Keller and a couple of others, I said the dumbest thing you could ever do is, and now I'm going to butcher it, but the dumbest thing you could ever do is think you're smarter than everyone else, right? First step is realizing that you don't know it all, and that level of humility definitely helps you grow a lot quicker. But Willie, we haven't heard from you yet. Who would you say was the most interesting or impactful person that you met?
As far as met go, I think I'll probably stick with someone I listened to or heard from. Well, obviously Gary. It's always interesting to hear his perspective and how deep he goes, especially in the vision speech and breaking everything down. We also he came in and interrupted another smaller group setting, which a few of us were in, which is pretty cool. I'd say that. And then the guy that talked about happiness, I thought was really impactful. I think I took the most notes during that, and the energy, the way he was able to work the room. And I feel like I got a lot of that out of that, if not probably the most out of that, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit more specifically.
For sure. We'll get to that keynote in a little bit here. So save your notes for that one. But absolutely. I had the opportunity to meet Gary Gentry. Uncertain if anyone has heard that name. I'm new to KW, so everyone there is new to me. But I had the opportunity to hear him speak, and then I ended up going up and taking my picture with him. As Gary Gentry happens to be the first Keller Williams agent in the history of the organization. It was Gary Keller, Joe Williams, and Gary Gentry was there from day one in 1983. So he was a part of the panelists in the breakout session. And, just hearing him talk about being in the first ever training class, sold the first property, had the first closing in KW. And I think when he was asked why KW, like back then, he said that he saw the size of the training manual on Gary Keller's desk and said he knew he'd get great training, right? So again, the conversation that we talk about today is not solely focused on real estate, but rather training, coaching, and education. And that hasn't changed since day one. So that was really neat to hear about, the most successful market center in Austin, Texas, and how Gary's been there since 1983. It was pretty cool.
Gosh, just if I could just kind of piggyback on what
Yeah.
Aletha and Kevin had said about the conference paying for itself. We had a closing in January from someone that we met at the last live family reunion in 2019 in Dallas. And the GCI from that closing paid for our tickets, our airfare, and our lodging. So it really does pay for itself. In addition to all of the maybe softer ways about bringing different aspects into your business and putting them into practice, you really can pay for itself just with referrals.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great to be connected, through Command, that we have access to the world's largest referral network. That's great, but it takes it to a whole nother level when you have a real relationship and have made a personal connection with someone that you can trust to take care of those clients of yours. So that was great. Kevin, anyone specifically that you met that was impactful to you?
I mean, I'm not going to come up with his name right now, but the military veteran that spoke was
Levi Rogers, I think.
Was amazing. And I mean, quick story was he's a, Afghan veteran, and, everybody in his, call it platoon, died except him. And somebody yanked him out of a tank or just like this unbelievable story, right? Like, and then he's, he got inspired to get into real estate. Most of his teammates are veterans. Literally his lead buyer's agent was the one that dragged him through gunfire. And like, it's like, you're sitting there and you're like, you're like, oh man, like inventory's low. And like the things I complain about are just embarrassing. So he was just, whatever you think is going on in your day, you're like, good Lord, shake yourself and get over it and get to work and whatever. So his whole story was just massively inspiring. Everybody should look him up, look at his website. I'm sure there's, the video of him speaking was amazing.
Yeah.
That was by far the most influential, I would say.
That was definitely one that I jotted down too, that to give a little more perspective, Kevin started to paint the picture, but lost 5 of his team in battle, right? So he has all that emotional distress that he brings back with him, but he says, how am I going to serve the greater population? So I don't think Kevin mentioned, but not only is he this influential agent running this large real estate team, but he has now been tasked as a new entity of Keller Williams, who is leading KW military. So it's an entire arm and branch of KW now focused on serving our military veterans, helping them find housing when they come back home. So be sure that you know that you have an additional resource within the KW umbrella that is now, we have luxury, we have sports and entertainment, but now we have KW military as well. But yeah, talk about not a dry eye in the room hearing that story, that's for sure. The one other inspirational one, Cody Gibson, I don't think you all had the opportunity to hear, but Cody Gibson, I'm not going to tell you his whole traumatic background, but just a very, very, very troubling and rough upbringing, not a lot of love from his family at all. But it was interesting when we're talking about, sometimes the roller coaster ride of our industry. The quote that I took away from Cody was, be grateful for the pain, right? Be grateful for the pain. Someone who could have said, woe is me, and been down in the dumps, but he realized that grit and being grateful for the pain is actually what helped him grow, right? And I think it's just a good reminder for all of us that a lot of times we may not be going through anything that Levi or Cody are, but when we think we're going through tough times, be grateful for that pain, as that's where the growth comes from, right? Yeah, I think you heard a lot about the networking there as well. Really, really impactful. I think the one comment I'd add to Aletha, I think it's a good reminder for all of us, wherever you are, whether you're at North Shore, Lake Country, Innovation, out around town, instead of looking for that empty table, like great to hear Aletha say, no, like go and sit down with someone. The book that jogged my memory, Never Eat Alone, jot that one down if you want to read a book about just building authentic relationships. And it's a reminder for myself that I need to take time to eat, not just for the sake of eating, but for the sake of cultivating relationships too, right? Let's jump into a couple of the breakout sessions here. I guess, Kim, tell me, and just for those who didn't experience it or maybe did not look online, there is a laundry list of breakout sessions, right? So this is where we're going to get into the real talk of agent to agent challenges, best practices, building a team, all the different types of areas of focus that you might be in your business. So Kim, I guess tell me, what was your favorite breakout session and why?
Well, I think that my most favorite was the 7 ways to build a powerful agent admin partnership, seeing as though we're just starting this off together. And Peter went to a different one and I sat in that one alone. And it was really, again, inspiring and thought provoking to learn that there's so much to learn.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel a little lost in an admin position because I know there's just so much for me to learn. I had also met Brindley Tucker, and she invited me to something that she had, an invite only for admin gals and guys. I think it was Sunday night or Monday night. And, I was exhausted. I wanted to be done at 5:30 or 6, and it didn't start till 5:30, and I was there till 8:30. And the energy in that room too, and for all these people, the speakers and the attendees, to talk about what they know and to help you cultivate your business or your job was, again, it was just, all of it was really awe-inspiring. And the sense of people wanting to give and give and give and give and help and help and help, no matter what. It's not a secret. Nobody's walking around with I'm not, I'm doing really well and I'm not going to share it. It's all, this is what I know. Give me a call anytime. And that was with, any person I met. I sat next to a young gal who, had, what do you call those braids, dreads and tattoos and gorgeous. And she was sitting next to her mother, and they were from Telluride. And she said, I'm here because I want to learn and I want to be the best admin that I can be for my mother. And I mean, I loved her. I love that she was ready to put herself out there and not being in a square box of what most of us look like.
Yeah.
And to share. And I mean, I've got her card and her mother's card, and we did share a lot of cards, did the same thing, sitting down at tables with other people, learning what they do. So I didn't go to that many breakouts by myself, but it was just all encompassing great knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, that I actually happen to sit in on that one too. And I guess one of the actionables that, is just a good reminder that oftentimes I think common sense is not that common, right? And when you hear it, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. But how many of us are actually implementing? The one comment I took from that breakout, an agent admin relationship, whether it's just growing or has been a couple of years in, like the reoccurring challenge that I hear is it's tough to give up control, right? Like you want to do it your way, you want it to be done right, and being able to trust that talent. That was the big takeaway I had, that it was, let the talent come alongside you and help you grow your business, where there's too many people focused on the finish line rather than focused on the journey, right? Like enjoy the journey. Just because you have an end of year goal, a 5-year goal, like don't be so focused on that you don't enjoy the journey, whether it be your personal growth or those that you're bringing alongside from an admin perspective as well.
Right. One of the quotes was, let go to grow. And I think
Yeah.
that's important for a team leader to kind of let some of their stuff go and give it to the admin and trust that they're doing it the right way, and let them fly with it so you guys can do your own thing that you're really good at.
Yeah, for sure. What do you got, Willie?
I was just on the same topic. I had something written down is hire out of gain, not out of pain.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people get to the point where they need someone so bad that they just hire whoever looks great or their friend or whatever without really vetting them and seeing what the positive gain is out of it. So I think that's a good shift focus is
For
don't
sure.
just hire someone to hire someone, because you're going to go through a few people before you find the right person if you do it that
Yeah.
way.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
One takeaway from that. I think my big takeaway was people expand teams because having a big team seems to be like, oh, I've made it and I'm successful. Look how big my team is. And one of the big takeaways, like Will said, is don't just hire to hire. You have to hire smart. And Gary had said, like, I love this quote. How did you get into the relationship that got you to the success today? To like look at each relationship as, it's the relationship, not the number of relationships that will get you to grow.
Amen.
I think that's so important as I think there's so many agents out there that collect agents to a team without having the relationships. And then they're not seeing the growth that they actually want to in the numbers.
Yeah.
Because it's about the people, not about the size.
Yeah, the more I get into my role here serving as team leader, the more prospective recruits that I'm talking to about growing our KW family here, it just continues to boggle my mind that the KW team concept is so unique to KW. Like at any of the other brokerages around town, the concept of a team is let's get a conglomerate of agents together, or as Willie said, hey, it's a buddy that we want to start a team together, right? Like that's not the MREA model of how to construct a team. And that's what, for anyone on this call who's considering, I need leverage, right? Like grow your business to the point that you can't break through that next ceiling. You keep going up the steps, but when you can't break through, that's when we need leverage, right? And that comes in the form of not just another agent being partners, but rather an admin support role that can help you focus on the revenue generating tasks. So yeah, it seems like common sense to some of us who are familiar with the team concept, but no, that's not the case around the industry. Emily, how about you? Favorite breakout session that you took in?
Yeah, well, okay. So Kev and I went to, I think all of us were there at the team. Well, most of us at the teams breakout on Saturday. And so one thing, a big takeaway for us, in fact, we were talking about this yesterday, literally this conversation of why are we growing? Because if we're growing for the sake of our own egos, we're never going to have valuable people on our team, or we'll have them for a short time and we'll lose them really quickly. So when we were at Family Reunion, we did the team breakout, and one of the big discussion points in that was about how to provide extreme value to the people that you currently have so that you can retain talent. And that's our biggest pain point right now is we've got awesome people. How do we keep them? How do we keep them happy? And then also, how do we attract new talent on our team? How do we attract high level talent? Because it's very easy to attract low level talent. So that conversation, that idea alone has sparked like a million conversations between the two of us and our mentors and our business coach and our admin and whatever. So that was really huge. The other thing I want to mention is if you guys haven't done this ever or recently, go back and read the MREA, because one of the whole parts of the breakout session for teams was going through the economic model, the lead generation model, and the organizational model. And the organizational model is all about building a team. And for us, we think we know everything. And the truth is we forgot 98% of it. And so we're back in there going like, oh, duh, we need to hire in this order. We need to hire it for these roles, for these problems. So go back and just do yourself the favor of reading through the MREA one more time. Like, do it every year. It's just always good. So that was big for me. And I know for you, you had a lot of takeouts from the branding. There was a whole breakout on branding, which was really interesting. That's where your takeaways were.
Yeah, I thought the branding was interesting. It's such like a such a hot topic amongst, you know, agents, because everybody talks about their brand, branding, marketing, and like some of it I buy into, and some of it I think is like maybe silly in a way, or where I'm going with that is some of the things where, like, you know, when you're thinking of your brand, either your team's brand or your brand within a team or whatever, the one common denominator, it was is it Bob Lucido's daughter, Lauren Lucido?
Yeah.
Greg Erlanger
Yeah.
was up there. He was impressive. So everybody basically said the same thing, is like, whatever brand you have, like, be genuine and be consistent. So it's not like somebody's brand is better than anybody else's, right? If your brand is you wear a suit in every single picture you take, great, that's your brand. But like, it better be genuine, right? Don't go buy 4 suits to be like the guy that wears suits in all his pictures, right? Like, that's not genuine. You're not going to keep up with that, right? So like, whatever your brand is, make it genuine to you, because otherwise people will see right through it.
Yeah.
And then be consistent with what that is, and consistent in like so many different ways, like your font, your messaging, your things, like the consistency of your brand and how you deliver it. That Greg Erlanger was interesting. He's from Ohio. He's got, you know, one of those ridiculous teams, 1,400 units or whatever. And he was basically like, hey, I can be like, you know, whatever, throw a suit on and, you know, blazer and you know, be on stage. But like my brand is, it's Landlord Greg.
Yeah.
And so he's got a bunch of investment properties, and the bulk of his branding is like him in this beat up old red Astro van going around fixing things. And he's like, that's just my brand. That's just who I am. And people love it. And it's genuine, you know, and I throw on my blazer when I have to go sell $1 million house, but like, my brand is just the regular guy. And that's what he is. And everything. And when you look through his Instagram, it's really consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we always laugh when we see like in Chicago, it's like Chicago Agent Magazine or like Top Producer Magazine or whatever. And there's always like these people on the front cover of the magazine, and they're like dressed to the nines. And then you see them at a showing and they're like in their scrubs, and you're like, what is happening here? And we always laugh about that. Like, we typically we present ourselves the way that we actually are in real life.
Mm-hmm.
We don't try to be something that we're not, because then we can just, it's easy. Then life is easy if we just live and breathe our brand.
Right.
And Aletha, you're really good at that, I think.
So I'll speak to that just because, thank you. I think the number one takeaway on the whole family reunion, for sure, sorry, my fiance just let my dogs out, so I apologize to everyone, was authenticity.
You're on brand. You're on brand.
I'm on brand. My dogs do make appearances in my Instagram. Was authenticity. And I've spoken on, you know, how to get buyers and listings on panels here and some other coaching groups and stuff. And I always say, like, if you are authentic, it should feel easy. And every agent that spoke on a panel the whole weekend was, I follow quite a few of them. Sarah Reynolds is a really good one. Anna Kalinsky. The way that they were dressed on the panel is the way that they were dressed in their Instagrams and their marketing. And I'm not buying a house in Atlanta anytime soon, but I would assume if I go to a showing, I would expect them to, to be similar in person. And I think it was true to growing a team. If you follow MREA and you're authentic to yourself, your team's brand and your personal brand and the whole kind of package is going to be authentic. And if it's authentic, it will build trust. And if it builds trust, it will build relationships. And I think that was the whole theme of all of the panels in over the whole weekend, was be authentic and grow smarter, slower, and, true to yourself, and you will see the success tenfold. So
yeah, that's great. I think, go ahead, Kevin.
I was going to say the other thing on the branding, and you can agree with this or not, but one of the head of the teams, they said, we just have a zero politics rule, zero, because he's like, no, you don't have to agree with that. You can be very political, but his logic was, everybody that agrees with you already agrees with you. And when you get political, you just lost half of your database.
Right.
Because statistically, the country's 50-50. So he's like, it's just a dumb business move to alienate half of your database. And I was like, all right, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So like their team, you've got your brand, zero politics.
Yeah.
I don't know what I think about that exactly, but the math makes sense.
I don't know if you guys can see this. This is the guy I met, the plaid dad. So pretty aggressive business card, but literally I saw him twice through the weekend and he was wearing that exact color of green, black plaid with a plaid Milwaukee Brewers hat on that I reached out. It turns out he's from Arizona, but it just made me think of it when you're talking about being authentic to your brand and who you are. And you better be it. If you're the plaid dad, like, right, that's his brand that everyone sees him wearing plaid around town. Before we jump into Gary's vision speech here, Emily brought up the MREA. Look, like I've read it once and thought, wow, this is pretty valuable stuff. I met someone down there that told me they've read it 24 times, right? They've read it 24 times now. So my challenge to all of you on this call, if you wake up in the morning saying, I'm spinning my wheels, I don't feel like I have the traction, I've plateaued, I'm not growing, like open the MREA, right? And whether you read it cover to cover or whether you look at the table of contents based on where you're at right now, I mean, the blueprint exists for us, right? I think that's what is the blessing that we have. Those who follow the MREA, man, you're going to be leaps and bounds ahead of your peers here. So
Josh, can I build on that for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just for those that haven't gone to, I know we've, a lot of new agents come to KW over kind of pandemic. And this is the first live in-person event that if you didn't go, one of the common threads between every panelist and most people that are at Family Reunion is that they've all read that book. And all of those successful teams, every single one will tell you that they are following the MREA model. Every single one. There's not a single team member or rainmaker or panelist, individual agent with an admin that is like, oh, I'm not following the MREA. They are all following it, and that is why they are seeing the success that they are. It is absolutely a blueprint for success, 100%.
Amen. Yeah, thank you, Aletha. Definitely.
It stands for millionaire real estate agent, by the way, if you didn't know that, but there might be some people that didn't know that.
I appreciate that, Willie. Absolutely. And the good news is, it gives you the models and the systems of how do you become an agent that is netting $1 million, right? But it also has the systems and formulas wherever you're at in your journey. Like you follow this roadmap, and at the end of the day, it comes down to your leads. It comes down to your listings, right? That's really, and then ultimately leverage, as we started talking about in teams and the admin agent relationship and so forth. With that, let's get into Gary's vision speech a little bit. Some of you may have heard a little bit from Charlie and team meeting yesterday, but man, 2.5 hours, right? Like if you thought Charlie gave a lot in 20 minutes, imagine that for 2.5 hours of content here. So Willie, tell me, what was most eye-opening or something tactile that you are going to make your own and discuss with your clients based on what you learned in Gary's vision speech?
The slide was up there yesterday. The most impactful for me was looking at obviously inflation and then adjusted inflation over time. And the cost of everything has gone up. But the real cost of a mortgage is actually down, I think 25%. So I work with a lot of buyers, as do most of us in this kind of a market. So I think that that's the biggest thing that I will be implementing in my own presentation. So get that slide definitely. And then just like the overall, I like being able to see and understand the slides about the larger economic factors that he's talking about. Inflation obviously being a big one. Charlie went through some of them yesterday, but using those slides and kind of being more of the economist of choice for my people rather than repeating the same message that they're probably hearing from 10 other real estate agents that they're friends with.
Right.
So like trying to find new ways to educate people and engage and, just be smarter about, understanding the world at large rather than just like focusing on like inventory and prices and all the stuff that just matters to our sector alone. So that was probably the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely encourage those of you who aren't aware of what we're talking about yet. Be sure to at least jump into Charlie's summary from yesterday's team recording. I know that is live on Facebook already. But before I dive into what Willie said anymore, I guess I want to hear from the rest of our group a little bit. Peter, what would you say is something that you're going to make your own and discuss with your clients?
Well, there was something I heard years ago before I even thought about getting into real estate, that the easiest way to get rich is to take a bus ride to the end of the bus line, get off the bus and buy what you're standing on. And then Gary came out with his Buy Dirt shirt and said that the biggest opportunity in real estate now is new home building. So buy dirt. And I was doing a DT-D2 call on Monday, talking to someone in my sphere. He said, man, they're going to drag me out of my home feet first, but what I'm looking for now is farmland. So, I mean, one of the first calls of the day was a buy dirt call. So that's going to be something that I'm going to be focusing on. I know some people that have some vacant land, and I think there's an opportunity there.
Well, and know that you may not need to go to the end of the bus line either. I'm not sure if you guys saw the headline yesterday, but City of Milwaukee is selling some vacant land for $1. Right. So as you're educating your clients as well on the opportunity, buy dirt was definitely a theme that Gary shared throughout. Kevin, what would you say? Anything specific there?
Yeah, I mean, I love all the stats. You know, one of the interesting ones, and I think we got the numbers right, that like historically for like the last 10 years that, you know, a realtor is involved, you know, in a transaction 87% of the time, right? On the buy side, the sell side. And in 2021, it was actually the highest it's ever been. It was like 91%, right? So when you're thinking about it, when you're talking, because, and Jay Pepson said the same thing that I would have thought it would have been the opposite, right?
Yeah.
You're in Milwaukee, like anybody can sell a home FSBO. Like you take some decent pictures, put it up there, right? And you can sell it, right? And we would come in, that would be an objection that you would come across when you're talking to a seller, right? You could work at how you say it, but like the fact that you're going to get 20 offers, and the fact that if you don't get this right, you could leave $40,000 on the table. Yeah, you could sell it, but you might leave 40 grand on the table. More now than ever, sellers are hiring realtors to help navigate that process, right? When I would have definitely thought, oh, it's the opposite. This last year, everything sells. It's the lowest it's ever been. It was the complete opposite. So that was an interesting stat to me.
Yeah, for sure. One other takeaway that I had in there, and Aletha, I guess it made me think of you. The question raised was, who is your coach, right? Like there's a lot going on here, a lot in this conversation. How are you growing? And it talked about consistently, constantly. Aletha, what action did you take while we were at family reunion?
I don't know what you're talking about. No, I'm just kidding. So I hired a MAPS coach. I've always been big on coaching, right? Like, you know, it's a scary investment. And then I'm like, wait a minute, every single successful athlete, actor, you know, business person, they all have their person, right? Their person kind of pushing them or holding them accountable. And one of the things is as I've grown in my career steadily, I was like, I want to speak on a panel. I'm doing a lot of these same things. So I asked Maureen and she's like, they're chosen based on maps. I was like, okay, it looks like not only will that coach help me hold me accountable as I, you know, grow my team, as I build, you know, add value to other people's business growth on my team, but I now have goals that are, you know, that in order to get there, I have to have a coach to take me to that next level. And that was another common thread, I think, the whole weekend, was that every single person that sees great success has someone that they're, you know, leaning on to just push them a little bit further. Then they hit the ceiling and they're pushed a little bit further. And I think that was, it was a little bit uncomfortable because hiring a MAPS coach in person with 20,000 people around, they ask you all these questions. And my fiance came to family reunion with me, and they're interviewing me like, what's your GCI? How many units, you know, for 2021? And I was proud to the fact that I knew everything to the penny, because again, I've been taught, thanks to our market center, to know my numbers. And they were like, wow, you really know your numbers. It's like, well, someone told me I had to, so I did. And then it easily, because I knew all that, I got back and had a coaching call that very week and already have accountability kind of standards in place. And yeah, so I left family reunion with a much larger investment than it cost me to go in. But like any investment, I'm hoping to see a return. So
yeah, no, that's great. Love to see you take action, not when we get home, but literally on the spot at family reunion, ready to grow and see how that coach takes you to the next level as well. I guess to summarize Gary's vision speech, I'm simply going to highlight Charlie's summary yesterday. Again, based on what Willie said, right? Like, understand that the majority of your clients, they're getting the exact same message from media outlets, from the other 12 agents that they know, or maybe they're not being communicated to at all by those agents. Like, I think it's really upon us to grow and get better, not just on our local market, but as Willie mentioned, like from an economy standpoint, right? About inflation, about the GDP, and how that impacts our conversation with the clients. Like, one of my greatest takeaways was history repeats itself, right? Like, look back at all these slides of Gary's, and there's really should not be any surprises as we move forward. Right. Charlie's summary yesterday for us to remember. So again, be sure you're hammering this home, take some notes, but we're in the golden year of real estate, right? Like, these are the golden years right now that we've been blessed with 5 incredible years. As he said, like, yeah, the market is hot. Yeah, we're blessed. The vernacular, again, as Charlie encouraged us, get rid of the inventory is low, right? No, there were 6.1 million homes sold last year, which was the second highest in the history. More of the velocity issue that supply can't keep up with demand, but that prices will continue to appreciate. Like, we know that, and looking back, we see that we expect 9% projected again this year. But again, our encouragement to our clients, despite the volatility with mortgage rates, they still are at historic lows, right? We got to make sure we're creating the right mindset. And then I think Willie touched on it earlier, but affordability is not the issue, right? Like, affordability has never been better. So make sure, as Charlie reminded us yesterday, he said, you cannot allow the market to determine your success or lack thereof. It's up to you, right? Must focus on the lead activities in the current market. With that, let's shift gears here. Want to make sure we get a chance to touch on the keynote. To give you guys some background, Sean Aker, an author, last name is Achor. Jot it down, buy yourself the book. It's called The Happiness Advantage. And then he has a new book that just came out as well. Remind me, what was the newest one?
I think it was Big Potential.
Big Potential, that's right. Potential. But this keynote was focused on the happiness advantage. I guess I'll just ask our panel, Emily. Well, let's start with you, Kim. Kim, what did you learn from? What's going to change your perspective on life or happiness based on that keynote?
Well, one of the things that I thought about was being more self-assured, to put myself out there, to make sure that I always come across being a happy person, and to keep moving forward. And no matter how hard it feels to do that, we just have to keep on pushing ourselves. I thought he was a terrific speaker. I thought he had so many different things to say. I mean, I've got 4 pages of just little quotes that he said. So I encourage anybody to, if they can, to listen to him. I'm not going to do him justice by just blurbing things out, but
yeah, no, it definitely is a mind shift, right? His point being, if we see the negative in each day, that's all you're going to see, right? That's all you're going to see. Willie, what would you say was your greatest takeaway about happiness? I think you're on mute there still.
Sorry, I dropped a picture frame and it broke. That was that noise earlier. I muted myself.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's all good. I don't care, but someone else will. So we, okay, when you're standing alone in front of a hill, it appears alone, it appears 30% larger. And when you're standing with at least one other person, visually, it appears 30% easier, right? So the power of positivity and like growing like a culture and an ecosystem of happiness, which you really have control of just by yourself. But, you know, we had all these studies of just the impact of simply smiling in a hospital, increased engagement, and, you know, happiness and overall, even though they couldn't go in the room with the patients, they were just doing this in the hallways. The patients felt the change and the scores went up. So I thought that was amazing. And just like, just little things to kind of remind yourself to do and the impact that you have on those around you. And if you put that all together, the energy gets bigger and bigger at an exponential rate. So
yeah, I thought that hill analogy is huge. You know, when you talk about, I guess Charlie, the Charlieism, I keep tracking my Charlieisms of all his sayings, but he says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? Like that's part of the concept here too, on our perspective and how you look at the challenges in front of you, that if we do it as a group, whether it be as KW, whether it be as KW Innovation, whether it be as the Champine Realty Group, you know, whatever it might be, that perspective on knowing that we're in this together is definitely a game changer. Peter, what did you take from the happiness discussion?
I've been committed to gratitude for a long time, and I've been doing gratitude meditations in the morning, but something that Sean said really impacted me, and I've put it to use already, is find something that you're grateful for from yesterday, because otherwise it can get kind of rote. So I'm looking for 5 specific things in my morning meditation and prayer, 5 specific things that I'm grateful for from the day before.
I love that. For those of you that didn't hear, that's a good challenge from Peter. The specific challenge from Sean, he said, invest six minutes. Invest 6 minutes in yourself, in your business, 6 minutes a day, okay? 2 minutes, just breathe or meditate. 2 minutes of journaling. I still need to get better at that one. Have not been big into journaling, but he said, you'll realize what you're grateful for and where your happiness comes from when you start to journal. What I have implemented and took action beginning with right as I was sitting in that room, the last 2 minutes of your 6 minutes, he challenged us to send 3 texts or emails giving praise or thanks to someone who has impacted your life, okay? This is not just do it one time and say I did it, but do it daily. Do it daily, and you're quickly going to realize, the depth of a relationship. Like I've done this for 1 week now, and the text threads that I've gotten in, it's just amazing, right? Like the network of support that is around you that you may not take the time out to realize. Know again, to what Will said, when we're looking at the mountain, doing it together is much more impactful. But from an agent perspective, I fully trust that if you start doing that with your clients as well, the depth of your relationship is going to increase in a dramatic way, that they may not be thinking about you, they may not be thinking about listing their home, but I guarantee you, if you start to approach life out of gratitude like that and let people know that, don't just think it, but let people know that, it's going to be a game changer for you personally and professionally there. Anyone else want to add something to happiness before we wrap up?
Oh, I do, Josh.
Yeah.
I just went through the participants in this, and I see a lot of like newer agents. One thing that Sean mentioned, which I thought was a statistic that was really, kind of a game changer, was that the top 10% of optimists outsell others by 89%, which is a massive number. And he went on to say that, if you're just looking at like the glass half full, and in this market, we don't have a listing problem. We have a lead generation for listing. Like if you look at it in that mindset shift of we can do this, our downward time is just, so you're slow right now. That's a gift of more time to lead gen, right? That you will outsell others by 89% just by looking at things with a positive mindset. I thought that statistic was really, really, really
that was powerful. I had that written down here to share as well if you didn't. So thank you for wrapping a bow on that. He said that happiness right now is the greatest advantage that you have in our economy, right? And that optimism is the greatest sign of success. That you can read someone in that regard, right? By their perspective on life, on whether or not they're going to be successful. So challenge yourself. If you're not the optimist, if you're not the one expressing gratitude, that's your challenge here, is to invest a few minutes each day into building that attitude of gratitude. Okay, let's try to bring it home here. We're looking for the one actionable, the one thing that you're going to implement personally or invest in for your business based on what you heard, saw, and interacted with that family reunion. So to give you all go ahead, Emily.
We gotta hit it because we are talking to a market center in Minnesota at 11. Yes. So my one takeaway is that you guys should connect with other brokers in different markets. We got to go.
Perfect. Love it. Thank you for the real life experience of that. Thank you both. Peter, Kim.
Okay.
Well, my takeaway came from a breakout that we had with Monica Reynolds. And this has been said before. There's only 200 tasks for a real estate agent. There's only 5 with dollar signs. Lead generation. You lead gen to lead follow-up. You lead follow-up to go on appointments. You go on appointments to negotiate contracts. And the foundation for all of that is practice and role play. So that's what I'm going to be much more purposeful about, is time blocking, protecting my time blocking, and lead generating for listings.
So you all know Peter did decline this opportunity originally based on what he just said. Right? Originally, he did. He said, I need to time block. I need to protect my calendar and focus on the lead gen that I know is most influential to the growth of my business. He then followed up and said, because of KW and all of you, how we support each other, that he definitely wanted to serve and wanted to support. So we are grateful for you there, Peter. Kim, anything you would add to that?
Not really. I think he summed it up pretty well for both of us. Just keep our feet on the ground and our head looking forward, and provide a positive energy to always speak to and see.
Absolutely. Aletha, one thing.
My one thing is to tighten up my expenses and identify every dollar that comes in and goes out of my business as either, a revenue and the ROI on that spend. And if there's no ROI on it, I'm going to cut it. So I'm going to essentially reread MREA and do a better job at following the economic model.
Yeah, love it. Willie, how about you?
I'd say overall, like the relationships was what I'm going to be focusing on. But one specific small thing that I thought was kind of cool, if you happen to be listing a house that has children in the house, give the children gift cards to like Culver's or something, $5 to $10, and it'll really wow the parents. That was like a small little nugget I heard, but I thought that was interesting, is like focus on the family, and if they've got kids, focus on the kids too, because the parents are going to get more engagement out of you, or engaged with you and trust you more if you do something like that. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Much appreciated. Danny, I saw your chat wrapping up on happiness advantage. He said, the quote was, happiness is not an individual sport. right? Not an individual sport. It's a team sport. Gail, appreciate the takeaways. I'm going to encourage you all. Feel free to shoot me an email with your one takeaway, right? I'll throw my email in the chat right now here. Look, at the end of the day, again, it's great to learn, but if we're not implementing, it's not going to go too far. My one thing, had the opportunity to hear the former director of innovation for Disney, and that was an eye-opening conversation to hear about innovation, right? And what I'd challenge you is to change your response from no because to yes and. Okay, I practiced this a lot with my kids and my wife in the last week. Mm-hmm. And I have learned that it is just a totally different perspective. When my 2-year-old is asking for a cookie when he has half of his dinner, I formally said, no, because you haven't finished your dinner yet, right? Instead, the response is, yes, you can have a cookie as soon as you finish your dinner, right? Just think about how we frame that with our clients. To me, it's something that I've already begun to implement, taking it from no because to yes and. And then his last point was, what if? Just start asking what if. Ask yourself what if, ask your team what if, ask your clients what if. And that's where the creativity, the ideas are going to continue to stream from. Really appreciate you. Out of respect for your time, I know we went a little longer here today, but hopefully, you understand that our goal is to help you all think a little bit differently so that you act a little bit differently in hopes that we achieve some different and better results as well.
Josh, can I just add one more thing?
Bring us home, Peter.
I appreciate this. There's so many newer agents on this panel, on this call. And so thank you so much for sharing your time. Comparison is the thief of joy. You've been doing this for a year or 2 years or 3. Don't compare your results to someone who's been doing this for 10 years or 30 years. The whole thing about my diving into Keller Williams' ethos and way is that success leaves clues. I compare myself and I find myself wanting, but if I follow what other people have done to be successful, that's where the joy comes in, not in looking at the results. So just be careful about saying, I'm not doing $50 million. I'm not doing 100 units. Don't worry about it. Find the events, find the activities that feed you back, and the success will come after that.
Amen. Amen. Best advice I ever received in coaching 7th and 8th grade hoops. Stop comparing yourself to James Harden, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, right? Are you getting better today? Are you doing 1% more? Are you doing a little bit more lead gen? And don't worry about comparing yourself to others. Thank you all. Greatly appreciate the time. Hopefully you found it valuable. Feel free to drop me a note. Thank you to our panelists, Kevin, Emily, Aletha, Willie, Peter, Kim. Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll see more of you at Family Reunion next year. Anaheim, it's in Anaheim. So start planning and hope to see you there. Everyone else, make it a great Wednesday. Take care.
Thanks
Josh.
everybody.